$24 million that could have been used towards development, hiring more employees, and for what? Do you guys really feel more protected? If you haven't heard, block.one had to settle with the SEC for $24 million for running an unregistered ICO. Now, there was a couple things with the ICO that ran during 2017 and into 2018. For one, there was a geo block. IP addresses from the United States were blocked. Secondly, block.one is registered in the Cayman Islands. They try to protect themselves from this to run, an ICO without being deemed a security. So let's dive into this, guys. And if you're new to the channel, I'm Brian Phobos, and wow, I have a lot of thoughts about this. It was actually pretty upsetting when I found out about this pretty much yesterday evening. And it really made me feel like situations where cops pull you over for no real reason and, they're sniffing around. What are you doing here? You got anything illegal in the car? And you're just in your head, you're just like, what are you pulling me over for? And you weren't speeding, you stopped at the stop signs, all that stuff, and they can just say anything. And that's the way I feel about this particular penalty in this particular situation. Honestly, I feel like it's, extortion or whatever you want to say, that, they're basically using this as a funding model to extract money out of different companies and saying, well, there was an unregistered ICO. Well, okay, you blocked the United States people, but, United States people use VPNs, so that's your fault and all this kind of stuff. So, honestly, it is pretty upsetting, and let's dig into it a little bit deeper. But that's part of the reason why BitShares was launched the way it was and why Steem was launched the way it was. So with BitShares, there was actually a proof of work. You had to mine proto-shares, and then proto-shares, for your proto-shares, you're able to turn it in for BitShares when the BitShares platform launched. But it was a proof of work distribution, essentially. And with Steem as well, there was this proof of work period, and there was a lot of weird stuff that happened around that, where basically it was like everybody was cut off for a while, and then it was just like insiders were like mining it, and then it was like, oh, it's back online, kind of thing. And then there was a period of time when I first got on Steem in 2016 where 1 out of every 20 blocks was like proof of work, but somebody was able to program a GPU miner, was able to mine a bunch and all this kind of stuff. So the EOS basically crowd sale or ICO was a lot more fair in its distribution, because every 23 hours there was a certain amount released, and then that happened for a year. And then they delivered what they promised, the EOS IO software, which ultimately, if you did have those ERC20 tokens, you're able to obviously turn them into EOS, Telos, and a few other chains as well. And then a lot of times that snapshot was used for a lot of the airdrops and stuff. So we got more. And, as far as what was promised and what was delivered, personally, somebody might have bought at a higher price, but that's anything. You could do that with Bitcoin. You could have bought Bitcoin at 20,000 and then, it went clear down to 3,150. So you can't say that just fluctuations in the price is necessarily the fault of block.one or any of that. But I think that we're going to see more and more of this, the SEC going after different companies. We've seen it already, and it's just like this funding source for them. And really, they're not. Okay, it's fine if they're going after legit scammers. If there's an ICO exit scam and all that stuff like that, I have no problem them going after that. But someone who actually creates a chain that is the most used blockchain. EOS is running on the EOS IO software. block.one has ran the hackathons, all that kind of stuff. And some people might say I'm biased or something like that because, I was a mentor for the EOS hackathons and that kind of stuff. But I would feel the same way if it happened to Ethereum. I do hold some Ethereum, but I would feel the same way. Why didn't they go after Vitalik and the Ethereum, other Ethereum founders and stuff? Because, they ran a crowdfunding ICO or whatever you want to call it in 2014 and raised around $18 million. But ultimately, and people submitted Bitcoin And then a year later, you were able to have your Ethereum on the Ethereum chain when it finally launched. So I'm not sure where they got a pass and then why some of these newer ICOs didn't. I'm not really sure. They tried to protect themselves, and the government still swooped in and extorted money out of them, essentially. I don't know what else to call it, guys. I really don't. It's just like some cop just writing some, BS ticket or something. And meanwhile, 2 blocks away, there's some method like drop kicking a newborn baby or something while they're writing you a ticket like, oh, you're a problem here, and they're just, what do I want to call it? They're just fundraising. They're out there fundraising. It's the end of the month. They got to meet their quota, justify their existence. I honestly, and I hate to rant about it too much, I think a lot of you guys feel the same way about this. That being said, I think a lot of these companies that are going to have the SEC coming down on them and force them to pay these penalties and stuff, I think in the future we're not going to have as many new chains coming out because they're not going to be able to crowdfund properly to mitigate their risk through any kind of down cycles or anything like that. And so I think that new money coming into crypto, it actually bids well for the stuff that kind of that's able to get past this and able to survive any kind of penalties. And there's just existing chains that were just purely proof of work. I think it bids well for them because it's going to be harder for like new people to kind of come in after these penalties have been assessed on these previous companies. So let's get a little bit deeper into this. So this Catherine Wu out on Twitter, she released a thing where she actually like dissected some of the notes and stuff like that about, this whole settlement, all that kind of stuff. And so basically, and I agree with her that, and again, there was no fraud, there was no criminal conviction in the sale. It was basically say that it was an unregistered ICO, and even though they did the geo block, and I agree with her on this. It says, by the way, this really shows that geo blocks by itself is not enough. These companies doing geo blocks to, block out the United States and China like EOS did, they still came after them, which to me was a surprise, to tell you the truth. Going down, so the geo blocks didn't work. Another thing that was, and so this is another thing, and I agree with this, that part of the reason why it was 24 million, only 24 million, which is obviously a lot of money, is because they were cooperative with SEC. Now, if you look at Kin, which is, the same company that has the app Kick. If you guys haven't heard, Kick is shutting down because they're investing all the resources into the Kin ecosystem to fight the SEC because they've been in a similar situation and they're fighting the SEC. They're like, no, this is garbage and stuff, and there's all kinds of drama with that. And I understand like why they're taking that route, whereas EOS just kind of cooperated with them and just forked over their money, which is, what do you do? Damned if you do, damned if you don't, kind of thing when, someone's trying to just take money from you like that. So, and again, Kin, is the 5th most used blockchain right now, behind EOS, Tron, Steam, and Bitcoin. And it's sad, they're going to have to shut down Kick, and they're going to concentrate their efforts on fighting the SEC, and they might lose all their money doing so, but try to fight the good fight, I guess. They did deliver a product. They have a usable ecosystem, that kind of thing, and it's, you try to build something today, and then you just get money taken from you. So I do like her write-up and her notes and stuff like that, and I agree with her on some of this stuff. Let's see. The main thing, though, that I interpreted, my interpretation of it was, that the geo block wasn't enough, and that the fact that the tokens, the ERC20 tokens, ended up on exchanges right away, and that people could buy the ERC20s like right away, without doing any kind of like KYC and without block.one registering, as basically getting permission to sell a security in the United States. Again, this really, and to be honest with you, this is part of the reason a lot of people ask me, why didn't you run some kind of ICO in 2017? Why didn't you do this? And I always said, I think that they're going to come down hard on people. It's not going to happen right away. I think they're going to come down hard. And actually didn't happen as soon as I thought. And then I was kind of like, a lot of these people kind of got away with it. Or I saw companies that raised like $18 million and then had to pay $250,000 for basically running an ICO. But they didn't geo-block and they weren't, formed in the Cayman Islands and all that kind of stuff like block.one did. I really thought block.one was fine and there wasn't going to be an issue, but I guess if the pot's big enough, the SEC will try to stick their hand in it. I just think it's unfortunate. But anyway, basically they have to pay the $24 million, and then essentially that's that. And EOS, the current coin, EOS or Telos or any of that, that's not a security. So going forward, they're kind of okay, and they can keep working on the software, and they can keep developing dApps like voice that they're developing and that kind of thing. Personally, I think that this is just, once again, reiterate, I just think that it's unfortunate. In a lot of ways, I think the SEC would be better going after legitimate criminals who ran legitimate ICO scams, who were just exit scamming, didn't develop anything, weren't working on something. I just, that's my personal opinion on it. I think a lot of you probably agree. And again, if you don't like EOS, I think that, and let's say you like Ethereum, or you like Cardano, or you like, anything else, Ripple, XRP, whatever. Tron, if you like something else, it doesn't bid well for those as well, because it's just bad precedence that they're able to extort money. And where does that go? Like, if everybody was so harmed by this, where does that go? Does that go back to the people who invested in the ICO? No. Like, I think that money just goes to the U.S. Treasury, and it's like, okay, thanks for protecting us. That doesn't help anybody. But again, it's the long arm and the strong arm of the United States. And I think that they're going to go after a lot of these companies that are operating outside of the United States. Who knows? Tron might be kind of dealing with the same thing. It is really hard to say. So anyway, changing gears, guys, and leave a comment below what you guys think about this particular ruling, and if you think that this is fair, or do you think that it's ridiculous or whatever. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Another thing I wanted to mention is that on Uphold, and I've been on Uphold for about like 8 or 9 months, really great service. They are adding, or they have added, like Digibyte, Dogecoin, IOTA, Nano. They've added like 15 different other cryptocurrencies to the platform, but it's not, in October, it's going to open up to U.S. customers for that. But if you're in another country, you might already have access to those. But that is a good fiat gateway, and you can basically take the coins out. I don't recommend these services. What are some of the ones that Circle was one where you can't like take the coins out, and then what's it? Robinhood, you couldn't like withdraw your cryptocurrency, so it's just like, okay, this is BS. This Uphold, you can withdraw. So that'll be something to look out for. Now, another thing I wanted to mention is that Energi is doing their 4th round of their airdrop, and you get 100 Energi, which the price dropped or whatever, but $290 potentially. But here's the caveat. If you're in round 2 or round 3, you had to have created an account. Or if you're in round 4, you had to have created an account already, and then you have to go through this this KYC process. Now, before I made a video actually saying how it's ridiculous that these, airdrops and these share drops and all this kind of stuff were requiring like KYC. But this is not actually like full-blown KYC. Like, you have to take a picture of yourself holding up your ID, but you can cover over your address and your driver's license number and all that kind of stuff, and just have your name. And then it's just like you have to link basically like social, you have to do social media stuff, like their stuff or subscribe to their stuff, all that kind of stuff. So I understand if you don't want to do this, and you would have had to already have an account, but basically there's been a flood because, you know, this was up over $3. It's like $300 for an airdrop. That's the biggest airdrop or share drop I've ever seen. Now, if you look at this, so it's basically like a clone of Dash with a few changes and stuff. And also, it supposedly could do smart contracts. I haven't really dug super deep into that, but if you look at when it started out here, August 24th of 2018, when it was listed on these exchanges, and it has done like really well since its inception, especially for something that came out late like that. So they're doing something right, doing a lot of marketing and everything. Now, will the price crash once the airdrops are released? You know, probably. I think they're going to release round 2, round 3, and round 4 all at the same time. So that really could weigh on the price. But if you already create an account and then we're like, no, I'm not doing KYC, the two things again, you're able to block out your address and your driver's license number and all that kind of stuff. And then also, they say that they're going to, after they do the airdrop or the share drop, they're going to get rid of all that information. They're going to destroy it. It's just so that they don't want people like signing up and getting the airdrop like 20 times kind of thing. That's the main reason behind that. So anyway, choose if you want to look into that. If you already created an account previously and then quit. So what do you guys think? Is this a fair situation that the SEC is going after all these different companies? Also, have you guys used Uphold? What do you think about it? And then have you tried to get the Energi airdrop? Leave a like and a comment below. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow me on all other social media at Brian Phobos, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Steam it. See you guys later.